Fear. It surrounds us, follows us, stalks us. It knows us intimately. It knows our darkest secrets and how to exploit them. Fear is everywhere, and it feels overwhelming. It feels powerful, strong. And there are so many types of fear. Fear of darkness, fear of death, fear of heights, fear of depths, fear of blood, fear of water, fear of attention, fear of neglect, irrational, instinctual, emotional, logical. But all fears, every one of them, have a single thing in common. This is Sacred Treks, a series where we look at Star Trek to try to see what life lessons we can take from it. And today, we're going to look at a personal favorite episode of mine, the Voyager episode, The Thaw, through the theme of fear. Not just about what fear is, but the power of fear. How it can be that overwhelming feeling that we have, but that when you face it directly, how that power actually seems much weaker than you first thought. The episode The Thaw begins with one of the scariest scenes in all of Star Trek, Harry Kim playing the clarinet. Nothing more terrifying. Soon after, though, Voyager finds a former trading hub planet that's now dead and lifeless 19 years after a solar flare has hit it. Everyone on the planet has died, except for 3 people found below the surface, hooked into artificial hibernation pods, basically cryogenically frozen. Well, I say 3, but there were actually 5, but 2 of them are now dead. And they were supposed to come out of hibernation 4 years earlier, so what went wrong? What went wrong indeed? An air of dread hangs over the proceedings as the crew beam the hibernation pods onto Voyager, and they soon discover that the 3 people living in stasis are hooked up into a shared artificial environment in their minds. Kind of like The Matrix. Does this mean that the whole episode is actually a transgender metaphor? Sadly, no. But you can't blame a good tran for trying. The Doctor informs the crew that the survivors in the pods are all experiencing extended periods of heightened fear.
Could be evidence of extreme fear.
Because they can't remove the people from the pods without risking brain damage, Janeway decides to send the Eternal Ensign, Harry Kim, and B'Elanna into the program to see what's wrong. And inside, we find a carnival. Tons of fun, filled with dancing figures, literally played by Cirque du Soleil performers. It initially appears safe and joyous, yet the music has this tiny hint of menace to it, and that feeling of dread never really dissipates as we move further into this dreamlike world. Because it's soon revealed that a man is watching over everyone. The clown. As we will soon learn, this clown is the manifestation of fear itself, brought forth by the collected fear of the inhabitants of the pod, who created the environment to manifest whatever they were feeling at the time. And since they were feeling so much existential dread over the death of their planet, well, here the clown is. But it's interesting that this world dominated by fear, the one that fear chooses to control, is not a dark and dreary place, but a carnival fun world. In fact, this world evokes the color and style of an old Star Trek The Original Series episode, filling us Trekkies with warm nostalgia, and thankfully without the old-fashioned sexism. This environment to many Trekkies is safe, familiar, and intimate. And yet, this is exactly where fear waits. You see, fear comes from a place of knowing you. It knows you intimately and deeply. And that's what makes fear so strong. because it knows what your deepest loves and desires are, and your worries surrounding them. It plays on them, on the familiar and the personal, and then twists them, bends them to its own will. Just as the clown sits in control of the familiar Star Trekian world that would normally feel safe, nostalgic, and familiar. But here, it most certainly is not. And the clown begins to play with Kim and B'Elanna, lulling them into that familiar feeling, until the threat makes itself clearly apparent.
Let's get out of here.
You got it.
It's at that moment that everything turns and Kim is suddenly placed into a guillotine by everyone around him, about to be killed by my BDSM trainer. I mean, just some guy that happens to be there. But the inhabitants of the pod quickly step in and stop the proceedings, telling Fear, the clown, that Kim and B'Elanna must come from a ship, and killing them would mean that even more would come to figure out what happened to them.
Who knows what will happen to this world if you hurt them?
I do. I know.
And Fear doesn't want his world invaded. He wants to dominate the few people that are there, not to have a crowd of people, because Fear knows that too many people dissipates fear often. Though you can work a crowd up into a fervid haze of fear. But it's now that everything is explained to Kim and B'Elanna, and the clown, Fear, makes his power known.
I am merely what has been created and is being created by his brain, her brain, and now yours and yours.
As I said before, just like the clown sits in control of the familiar environment of Trekkies, so too does he currently know everything about Kim and B'Elanna. He's literally latched into their brain, and then, surprisingly, he claims to speak for them.
You will talk to me. I speak for them. And I speak for you now. You don't understand that yet. You don't accept it. But you will.
Fear, because it knows us so intimately, often claims to speak for us. It claims to be our driving emotion, the one that controls us, the thing that motivates us into action. It wants to be that, and quite often can be. It whispers in our ear that because it knows us so well, we should let it dictate to us how we act. Let it speak for us. It knows what's best for us. I'm Fear. Listen to Fear. I'll tell you what you need to do. Yet, the episode begins to prove how untrue this seeming truth of Fear is, because in Fear's world, reality is warped and bended. There is no physical continuity. Items move and things jump around and appear on different sides of the room without warning. The director of this episode, Marvin Rush, was inspired by the works of famed surrealist Italian director Federico Fellini, an artist known for using his images and worlds to not create a world of reality continuity, but emotional continuity. Emotional continuity is still truth, it still has a coherence to it. For example, when the clown wishes to move across the room, he just does. When he wishes to have his crowd behind him, he has the crowd behind him. When he wants an object, it's there because we can tell that that's what he wanted, and so it makes sense that it's now there. It has a logic of its own, but it's not reality.
It's an illusion.
When your only reality is an illusion, then illusion is a reality.
But in fact, it's just a world where emotional truth dominates. And emotional truth is powerful and important. And as Star Trek has always argued, it's just as important as logical truth. But this world is not balance between logic and emotion, but just fully emotion. It is a world controlled by an emotion, a specific one, fear. Even the other people in this world, the dancers and performers, are just extensions of fear itself, just reverberations of him. Always in the background, emphasizing and playing off of what the clown is doing. Even in the images the camera creates, the clown dominates the attention, the focus of every shot. Everything is driving towards him. Fear controls in this world, just as fear can control human beings in the real world. But he only controls the emotional. And I think that's an important distinction to never forget. Though sometimes, when fear controls us, it's hard to remember it. But Fear allows B'Elanna to leave, who warns Janeway that if she tries to free any of the hostages, including Harry Kim, from the machine, Fear will kill them. So, because this is Star Trek, the crew goes to another meeting in the conference room. And the sense of dread and building tension and anxiety continues to heighten. Even the conference room is lit darker than before, highlighting the growing mood. And it's here that Janeway begins to muse on the purpose of fear.
When fear holds you hostage, how do you make it let go?
That is the question, isn't it? Fear is necessary. It can be helpful for survival. It can be a useful tool, a scalpel even. But when it controls you, when it dominates every part of you like a hammer to the heart, how do you defeat it? And why do we let it control us? Back in the program, fear begins to torment poor Ensign Kim, playing on his biggest fears.
Like the man said, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
And no, surprisingly, Ensign Kim's biggest fears is not that he will stay an ensign forever, a deeply rational fear for him. He has other fears. Getting old, or being considered a baby, of being sick or helpless. A fear that many of us feel every day. But fear begins to mock him as he recites, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself."
Keep repeating, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Which is true. Fear is the only thing that we have to fear. But fear is something worth fearing, wouldn't you say? And so the tension, as it has this whole episode, continues to build more and more. Apprehension, anxiety. Kim is about to be killed, murdered, just for fear's plaything. It's all building to this moment, and...
Excuse me. You're not holding that properly. Correct positioning of the index finger is necessary for optimal dexterity.
Fear diffused. The music cuts out, and all the tension that has been building this entire episode is released. The doctor steps in, sent by Janeway to negotiate with the clown, and he stops the torture of Kim with a simple explanation of how to hold the knife properly. The doctor's mind cannot be read by fear because he's a program. Fear does not know the doctor. And because fear doesn't know the doctor, fear can't play off the doctor, because fear has to know us. Yet despite his indignance, he is impotent against the doctor.
How am I supposed to negotiate if I don't know what you're thinking?
I have a very trustworthy face.
Michael McKean, who plays the clown to perfection, by the way, constantly tries to spin back up the tension in his conversation with the doctor, but the doctor just knocks it down because fear has no power over his mind. This inability for fear to control the doctor is also why when the doctor offers fear a simulated brain to keep himself alive while Voyager removes the hostages, fear immediately turns it down.
We would provide continuing input from a simulated brain. A computer model that would generate...
Simulated brain? Simulated?
I myself have a comparable.
It won't work. It's a lie. Tell him, Harry.
Fear doesn't simply wish to continue to exist, it wishes to dominate, control, and it can't do that with a simulated brain. It needs familiarity. It needs something that can feel it. The doctor fails to negotiate with fear because fear cannot really be negotiated with. When fear dominates us, when fear controls us, it either exists or it doesn't. So what do you do in the face of that? Well, I think most of us, our first reaction would be to try to distract ourselves from fear. And that's what the crew does. Using a hint from one of the pod people, and that's an entirely different movie. Anyway, sorry, pod person, Janeway and B'Elanna try to turn off the simulation, this time by having the doctor distract fear. Fear can be distracted for a moment, for a little bit, but it's always there, in the back of our minds, even if we try to distract ourselves from it. Fear likes to creep into our brains, and we can try to ignore it, but we still feel it down in our guts. It's there, waiting. And when it comes back with a vengeance.
It's an attack! It's an attack! Red alert! Red alert!
And then, in anger, he kills the poor man who gave the crew the idea in the first place to try to distract fear.
He's dead.
And as a result, Janeway understandably becomes frustrated because she let a man die, lamenting,
Fear can provide pleasure. To seek fear is to seek the boundaries of one's sensory experience.
But what does fear seek? At the end of the ride.
What happens to all the fear at the end? What does fear seek, ultimately? The Doctor appears back in the program and begins Janeway's gambit.
Ultimatum! Ultimatum. She would give me an ultimatum?
He warns the clown that the clown will be shut off in 60 seconds unless all the hostages are released. The clown, panicking, tries to negotiate, but the doctor is relentless and continues to count down over and over and over again, saying, "This is the choice that you have to make. You have no other options."
43 seconds. She will allow you to keep one person on the system. The other hostages must be released.
One? Never. I won't agree.
You have 30 seconds to avoid termination.
But then, he offers the carrot, Janeway.
The one hostage you will be allowed to keep is Captain Janeway herself.
She would choose to be with me?
And this is an offer Fear can't refuse, because Janeway, she's just so enticing, isn't she? To control and dominate the person who is controlling and dominating others, to let a person who is in charge of others be dominated by Fear. That's an opportunity that can't be turned down. Janeway arrives in the program and the hostages leave. And as Janeway and the clown begin to settle into their endless time alone together, Janeway reveals something to the clown.
I've known fear. It's a very healthy thing most of the time. You warn us of danger, remind us of our limits, protect us from carelessness. I've learned to trust fear.
To Janeway, fear is familiar. Fear is something she feels every day, yet she trusts it because she knows the truth about fear. And it turns out that this Janeway isn't real, but it's a hologram, with the real Janeway still outside the program, just letting her brain be scanned to trick the clown. You see, in this moment, the clown realizes that it's beaten, defeated, done. It made a mistake. And that was always how it was going to be. Because fear is defeatable. In fact, all fear, is made to be defeated. The thing that all types of fear have in common is that they end. That is what the episode tells us, and it's the truth. But it's what the episode shows us, but doesn't say, that I think is the true lesson to be learned here. How fear is defeated. The world that we live in today seems to be built on fear. Everything is scary and terrifying. Global warming, pandemics, people telling us to be afraid of each other because of our differences, a fear of coming together. Even simple things seem terrifying. Putting ourselves out into the world, talking to other people for some of us, the anxiety that comes from social situations. For me, maybe it's even something as simple as writing a script of a video, staring into the whiteness of a page, afraid to put down words on paper. That blank page, as deep as any dark void. The fear of it sometimes feels overwhelming. Or for some of us can be depression, anxiety, the fear of upcoming events, paralyzing us into inaction. Fear can sometimes control us. It can control so much of our lives. It can dominate us. It can dominate society, dominate us personally. It knows how to whisper or even yell in our ears the exact things we don't want to hear, but in some ways we do. We want to hear it sometimes. Hear it tell us that we aren't good enough, or that others are terrifying, or that there's nothing worth fighting for. It wants us, and sometimes we want to live in that emotional truth, that emotional reality. Not a balance between logic and emotion. Just emotion in the end. Because you see, in the end, the way to defeat fear is to know that it is a part of you. That emotional truth is a part of you. It can help you. It can help you realize the things that you fear and keep you safe, but you don't want to let it control you. As Star Trek has always taught us, we don't want emotion to control us. We want it to be a part of us, But logic is also just as much a part of that. To defeat fear, because fear does want to be defeated, you have to have the drive to defeat it. You have to want to defeat it. And to understand that, you have to have the drive to see reality, to see through the fear, to see the truth. That the world is good, that people are kind, that you are good enough. But fear wants to play the game with you. But it wants to play to lose. You just have to know that it will lose, and it will. And that is what Janeway ultimately knows. Because she knows fear as much as fear knows her. And that leaves us with the episode's haunting final moments. Because instead of the typical coda on the bridge of the ship, all we are left at the end of this episode is this scene.
Like all fear, you eventually vanish.
I'm afraid.
I know.
If you face fear head on, all it will simply do is slip away. You just have to know that you are stronger, because you are. We are always stronger than fear. Hey everybody! I hope you enjoyed that one. I was trying to do something new with Sacred Treks because I haven't done a Sacred Treks in a while, so I figured I'd try to do something different and new with it. So I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more analyses of Star Trek, transgender, LGBTQ issues, as well as on this channel. I have a Patreon page that you can help support me at doing what I do, and help me get to do weird, crazy stuff like this. It's a lot of fun. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Did you like this type of Sacred Treks where I was trying to do something new? Do you like Sacred Treks in general? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you like this episode, The Thaw? It's one of my, honestly, this is one of my personal favorite episodes of Star Trek just in general, and I kind of wanted to just rant about it a little bit. So I hope that this was something cool. I tried to have a little bit of fun with it. It was a pain in the butt to try and get the sound to work, but I hope you enjoyed it, and regardless of if you did or not, I just want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this community. I love you all, and I hope that you, as always, live long and prosper. Fear. It surrounds us, follows us, stalks us. Just like car horns, apparently. Hey there, my patrons, I see you. Thank you for supporting me now. It's October, so I thank you so. I couldn't do this without you. It kind of sounded like Scooby-Doo, right? Anyways, here's your names, patrons. I love you so much. Jem, Shin, April Stirk, The Blessed Rain, Sarah Sweeney, Tony the Author 13, Morgan the Pirate Queen, Joe Herman, Holt, Miranda Janelle, Eli Berg, Maas, Kathleen Lambeth, Ashley Allen, Bo Kiki, O.D. Cassaray, Jetty Indiana Jones, Stephen Kleinard, Alex Miller, Ish the Mad, Ramsey Thompson, Wellington Marcus, A Man Chooses, A Slave Obeys, Mary Mello Bays, Boyd Earl, April Struck, G-Man 42, Joseph Dewey, Chloe Dollar, Felicia Toast, James Crivdell, Elizabeth Christie, Sen, Seven Schuhart, Dominic Noble, Aaliyah Kai Gooch, Jessica Wright, Sonia Nero Purdue, Nathiel Fraughton, Peter Landers, Jared Johnson, Ferengato, John Steele, Wendy Bizzle, Celestial Dawn, Barbara Heelchuck, Geek Filter, W. Randy Edie, Piston Twisted Garage, John Witherby, Eva Kaniva, Meadow Whisperer, Melinda Walters, Ulysses the Pagan, Tiffany Danger, Casual Observer, Lysa, Alex Owen, Beatrice Purvis Flynn, Keith Briggs, Megan the Goblin, Emily Loomis, Odd Just Odd, Lamia, William Stewart, Angie Pugh, Jessica Chapman, Andrew Lamoureux, Gretchen Badger, Amanda Ronya Adanya, Sarah Bystam, Laura Demereau, Kelesis, Sky Skinner, Fritz Steven, Hieresis, Noble Munch Comics, Jacob Tovar, Nathan Steele, Mary Mack, Sarah Sweeney, Jason Knott, Sean Piper, Shib Machine Berlin, Maeve, Andrew K, Polly Mina, Strawberry Pup Tart, Lily, Munir Amlani, Crit Fax, Nikki Gordon, Bloomfield, Chris Overbeck, Michael Hardy, Zoan Librarian, Michael Godey, Jenny Marble, Pay Steve, Philip Hawkins, Mark Brown, Andy H, Corey and Vale, honkin' in. Kinda lost the Scooby-Doo of it all, but thank you so much, patrons. I love you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful Spooktober. I'm a dork.